We were talking right before about the experience of online and it shaping narrative. And I think that's what we were about to talk about before we got into the fitness stuff. Or was there a tangent?
There was a bit of... I was telling you about my body language.
Yes.
And how... Sure, I guess this could be the start.
Wherever you want.
Yeah. Do you have a tissue? I was about to do the most like junior high thing and just tuck it right
You
down
put it on the back of comics, Greg.
What was the camera
Put it on the back of comics.
Like, oh, yeah.
It's totally.
I'm totally not going to.
Oh, wait, napkins flying in, tissues.
No one's going to notice this. Oh, really quick.
Yeah.
I did make a promise to myself that I would mention at the very top. By no one's asking. This is just, I feel it's the right thing to do.
Okay.
Multicon. February 22nd, Multicon.
Right here.
We really care about this event, like a lot. It's way different to us than doing a Comic-Con or a WonderCon. Honestly.
I care about Comic-Con and WonderCon, Greg.
I know you do. And you like the MegaCon. You know where I'm going with this.
I just had to make sure to call out people that know I love them.
I mean, I love doing them too. Now I'm freaking paranoid. I'm like no, whoever showed it during Comic-Con.
It's all genuine. Don't hate it.
I loved it. I really did. But that always felt like just self-promotional.
Yeah, this feels like more. I totally
and it's totally, of course, that you can't not acknowledge the element where, of course, there's a promotional sense to it. Like we are promoting ourselves, going to be at something,
but we're not getting anything out of it except for wanting to help, and that's different.
That's the difference. I like that was the thing in our talk with everyone was like it feels good to know that we're going to try to contribute to something and do what we love to do. So it takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
I really feel like we could be ourselves.
And we're doing what we love and helping people in a way that is so unique. Because usually talking is not something that I can help with, like charity.
Even for the panels that I'm hosting, I'm like, I'm not trying to do this for, I need to impress someone to get some like big career thing. I think whenever you do that, you tend to fail anyway. But I don't have that in my mind either. I'm just like, you know what? It's less pressure. I'm sure if I like do something stupid at the panels, it's fine. But all the rejects will be there.
All of us for the first time.
All going to be doing and I feel like that wasn't made clear. Is we're all going to be on one panel together, and then there's going to be a couple, maybe before or after, where Coy hosts a panel and I host a panel. I still don't know which panel I'm hosting. I'm
hosting the King of Comics panel. It's going to be Robert Kirkman, Robert Liefeld, Kevin Smith, David Desmalchin.
Cool.
So a lot of like my friends outside and inside work. It's going to be really fun to like. I've never had Kirkman and Liefeld together, and they're both best friends, and like I know them separately. I'm so excited to see them. I'm so excited. This is going to be such a fun panel.
Are they going to talk Walking Dead?
I assume. And Invincible, which had a season just start, which you might be covering.
Pretty good season, man. It's a pretty good season
also,
so far.
Rob had a pretty big article drop this week. Don't know if you saw that.
Nope, did not.
I would argue it's the equivalent of the Tarantino article last week to scale. He basically said he's never working with Marvel again because they don't. He literally, dude, he said,
this is movie news reaction.
Here we go. Yeah, this is a reaction to Greg reacting to the knowledge. He said they don't respect comic creators.
Knowledge. Damn. After Deadpool and Wolverine.
That's what the article's about, is like he wanted to have an opening title credit like in Superman, and they also didn't apparently let him into the after party. Which is
really?
So he called out Feige directly saying like they don't respect creators, and the article's crazy.
You know who should invite him? James Gunn.
It's interesting being in this position of like comics are now so deeply adapted that we have commentary on them. Like there was like 10 years where it was just like, I can't believe it's real. And now it's been so long. Now it's like, can't believe they did that. Like it feels like the drama of any other genre now.
Yeah, we'll be meet and greet, and we'll all be. Even though I'm so weird about meet and greets.
How so?
Because I'm like, there's this section where I guess people like pay extra to. Everything's going to the victims of the recent LA wildfires, by the way. But it's just that's why we care about it.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't mention any of that, but that is why. And so
no one here are making a dollar.
I feel that's what I mean. I feel good about it. If someone does act, I've always felt weird about it. I've never wanted to put that in a package or any of events.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Of like, I don't want to do that. No slight to anyone who does it. I think it's a real like. Maybe self-confidence, self-worth issue. You know, I could try to justify it all I want, but that's what it really boils down to at the end of the day. Is like, I don't think people want to pay to like say hi to us. Like, why can't we just say hi to them? Like, I'm going to stick around until my wife leaves, and I'm still might have to be here because
I need to get an Uber home. But in this case, it's altruistic.
Yes. This time, if anyone wants to pay, I'm like, sweet, it goes to the community, the victims of the wildfire.
And we're helping in a genuine way.
That's what I mean by taking the pressure off.
Yeah. And I'm excited for the whole day. Like, it is going to be panels, which I love the con experience. I love panels. I also love meeting people because our job is so weird. Like, right now, we're sitting in a room and there's just cameras pointed at us, and like John's running the 1s and 2s, and like this is our normal life.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel real until I meet the people on the other side of these cameras. Like, none of this feels like anything but a Greg and Coy conversation until someone's like, oh, that thing you said. I'm like, oh, right, we filmed that. Like, this job is so artifice until the human element of meeting you guys comes in.
Yes, that's very true.
Especially like reactions. When I started meeting people like at cons that are like, oh my God, I love Real Rejects and your reaction when you said blank, that made me so much more comfortable doing what we do for a living. Because in my head, I feel actually insane sitting in a chair watching something knowing that I'm like, oh, I just made a face of excitement. Like, it's a weird job. So the human element meeting you guys is why we like it, or why I like it.
It's one of my absolute favorite parts, to meet like the real people. And you said the word artifice. I'm going to just start writing down words here because I know my memory well enough to be like, shit, Coy, say something. And I can't remember what he said.
Are you being stenographer?
I've been getting up at 5 in the morning the last 3 days, and I'm not used to it. So it stops tonight, but today I did, and I'm like, I'm not used to it. I'm like, I know where my memory is right now, and I just need to be honest with myself. So my notes are not me like movie news notes. Like, no, he said something, and just right when we're done, he said artifice, and that's what I was realizing was weird about when we were first mentioning Multicon here, and I started putting this like pre-ad on the videos. And I stopped that today because I'm like, I don't know. There's just something that feels weird about just doing like a typical plug that you like do in advance, right? Which you got to do a lot of the time. But for this, I was like, I don't feel like I'm really getting it across though. Of like, we really care. Like, we talk about it. Like, we really are excited for this in a different way. And so I took it down. I'm like, I don't know. I just want, and I wasn't planning on talking about it with you.
Well, I talked about it in the Boys in the Hood thing.
This is how we feel about it. So it's not, it became, I started realizing like this whole thing of like, just push it out. So like, that's what brand deals will do, right? Like, just push it out and you get like 200,000-300,000 views or something. And that's where my mentality was at. Like, oh, I got to promote this. I'm going to push it out to as many people as possible. I was like, but even if he got on a video with just like 10,000 views, but enough of those people like cared after knowing the truth of how we feel. I'm like, that's way more important than trying to get the numbers in,
I think that's the basis of this show. Like, what I want to do with this show is like, I don't care if it hits 1 million views. I care if it hits the 10 people that are going to understand where I'm coming from. Maybe more than 10 for Greg.
Now, I'm going to try some things while we're filming that I'm like, okay, let's see how real we can get.
Okay.
If I have a random moment where I'm like, I'm just going to sidestep and ask him a very real question about a moment that just happened that I would normally, if we were just in conversation, be like, wait, what do you mean by this? So when you said what I want to do with this show, I got this like weird defensive thing in my heart that kicked off. I'm like, doesn't he mean by what we want to do with this show? So it just like kicked in. That shit happens to me all the time in life.
I consider like this is our show because there's 2 of us.
I know.
So, but I don't feel like we have to have that feeling of possessiveness because it isn't a committee. No. But I should say we.
I mean,
that's fair.
I appreciate it.
I accept your grammatical note, and it is, I implied I, and I meant we. But that's what I personally want to get out of our show.
But that happens so much in partnerships that go wrong.
Sure.
And I'm like, I'm trying to see how much of this can we just skip while we're filming to save some time.
These poor people watching the show. These poor people. Our show.
Like, hey, can we just talk this through really quick? And like, can it be cool? Like, I don't know why. Like, little child in me just came out, and I was like, I feel like this is a we conversation, not an I. And
but aren't there individual things that would then come up that we would navigate as an hour show? But I'm saying I'm not assuming what you want out of the show is what I want out of the show. So it came from a place of I, but I consider it our show. So what I want out of this show, which is ours,
I get it. You're compartmentalizing what you're talking about. Yeah.
So like,
I logically get it.
Okay,
that was an emotion
but the emotional response was like, "What do you mean?"
I'm saying placate to my emotions, Coy.
I apologize.
Apologize.
I hate your inner child.
That's what I'm doing.
What I would like out of our show is that real groundedness of conversation like the one you just had with yourself and me. But also, I think that hitting the people individually is something most movie news shows don't do. And that's why I love the title, A Good Movie News Show.
It's even to call it a movie news show felt weird.
And vapid.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't want to put us in a box.
Sure.
You know, like that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Of because it's clearly when you hear a movie new show and you see it's an hour-long runtime, you're like, they're probably going to talk about multiple things on this, right?
Maybe not.
And
We might just talk about
we pretty
our
much talked
own
to two
panel.
topics. We talked about 6 seconds for 30 minutes, and we talked about like the whole Tarantino article and what thoughts I've strung up. So I didn't know we don't know what to call it.
I like Real Rejects, man.
Aaron brought that to us, was REAL rejects.
I think it's so cheeky.
I've had that pitched to my life so many times. Like, you should just call it this. You should just call it this. And it was the first time I heard that where I was like, oh, I've heard that pitch so many times, of specifically the Real Reject.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I heard that. I'm like, that actually makes sense for this.
I really think it embodies what we're trying to do and what we did do with the first episode. What I want to continue with this for
It
us.
sounds like it's the title of the show.
If we want it to be.
Yeah.
But
What are the other ones? We had like the real newsy ones, right? We had the I stand on this shill.
Yep.
And thrills.
I'll die on this shill.
I'll die on this shill,
Which is
Stand on
very-
the shill. I'll die on this shill.
Hello, I'm standing here
standing
on
on
this
the shill.
I'll die
I
on
stand
this
amongst the shills.
I mean, that's the internet. But I'll die on the shill is cheeky,
Yes.
which I respect. Thrills and shills, I like. I still love a question mark in a title because I think it's funny as hell. A good movie in
I think that we just have like a real breakdown with why to say Real Rejects.
Yeah, no, that's
You
the
know?
first one that was like, oh, that checks all the boxes.
Definitely top of the list.
Yeah.
And I also do like the idea, because a big thing that Coy and I said right in the beginning too is like, this will be us because we have to maintain some level of consistency. That's so important. And there's big things that as individuals we want for this show.
Now he gets it. Now he
Now
understands.
I get it. I've learned a lesson. I've gotten past my tired anger. Learned how to character arc here in the last few minutes. It's a good short film for everyone. And I just totally lost. This is why I write shit down. I totally lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
Here I was like trying to let you talk because I feel like I was over talking you for the last 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm gonna
What
let
were
Greg
we
go.
just talking about?
Real Rejects. The title.
The title of the show. Yep, I forgot exactly. I cannot flow
From where we
into
left?
it. I just don't know. There's no rewind button here. we're not cutting it. So here we are.
What do you want to talk about today?
Oh, speaking of shills, that was that's the title of the show. Speaking of shills. So speaking of shills, that's where my mind was kind of thinking about today, because I went on this random thought process on the car ride over here of what were we going to talk about. And the main thing I said to you, which is was like, what was it? Reacting to mean comments from the Fantastic Four trailer,
Yes.
right? That was what I said. Like, maybe we could do this, right? Because our approach is not like we're going to do this and be like, haha, Marvel, huh? We want to see like, hey, where do we actually agree with this? And where do we not? Like, just have an actual conversation about it and not try to just, it's not for like a hatred thing, right?
Right.
But on the car ride over here, I was thinking about some stuff. And one of the things was about that delay in writing process that I've been having lately, where I really feel like I've latched on to something, but then I stopped. And it got me thinking in the last live stream that we did, someone asked me like about writer's block stuff. I realized that was like the 20th person or something in the last year who's asked me about it. And I kind of feel like I don't know the answer to something like that. And I know how hard it is to overcome it.
Yeah.
And it put me in this whole like spider web path of going, and this is a big part of why I have such respect for filmmakers, you know, why we're the kind of people when you get to know people, that's the thing that happens when you get to know people. I'm getting to the show thing in a second. When you get to know people, sometimes you care to be more respectful about the way you articulate the things you don't like. And a big part of, that's why I'm not, there were certain things that we've done in the past on this channel. I was like, I don't know, you don't realize, sometimes you don't realize when you're being inauthentic. And it's so important to get to a point when you have to realize you are, right?
There's a difference between being a critic and being a
Yeah.
And the internet
blur that
doesn't
now.
know
Censor
that.
that.
But like,
Prepper, John, get on the keyboard, John.
but that I think is what like the summary of what you're trying to say. And I think the internet leans the latter. And I think we try to lean the former. And we don't even consider ourselves critics. I very consciously am not a critic.
And that's my point, is it doesn't feel like, hey, I'm trying to be a critic and be a nice, respectful critic. I'm trying to be a nice, respectful person.
With critiques.
You're right. So like there's shit of approaches that I've taken in the past that I'll gladly own of like, I learned something from that.
Yeah.
Like I did not like the way I handled my reaction towards the Marvels, right? this is a Disney apology video. No, that's not what it is. Like I did not like me as a person because I don't like that movie.
Yeah.
I really don't like that movie. That there's so much in when I chilled out over being like unreasonably upset for no reason other than like I was just like to myself angry. I was like, there's a lot that I actually did like about the movie, and I wish I communicated some of that instead of going for the obvious, I hate this, here's my thumbnail, you know, like, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm gonna roll with this. And then that was my own individual choice. I don't know. I think the influence is obvious of where I was personally influenced. Just because I was influenced does not mean I blame it, though. I want that to be clear. It was my individual choice to do that. There is a thing, though, when it's not a but, it's a however. When you're running a YouTube channel and you do get concerned about, I gotta get these views. When that shit kicks into your head, then you start to feed off of what you know works, and negativity often works. And sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it. Yeah. And I took it to heart and when I realized that. The way I worked with like Tara and Roxy when it came to the canceling of Chucky, I didn't really. There's so much about that choice I'm so back and forth on. And
you bring that up, and I don't know if you realize, and this is it's very just conscious. You bring that up often to the point where I can tell it affected you consciously and subconsciously. Yeah. That's like one of your go-to, I was affected by this choice moments in this channel.
Because it's not a choice about, I agree with the haters. That's not it at all. There was something about the way I personally handled it, and I wonder, and I do go back and forth. Like, was it? I don't know if that was to suddenly be so much about business.
It affected you because you also, that was a pivot point to where you've gotten more emotionally driven. I
felt like I was being positioned again, all my own individual doings. I made my choices. I felt like I was, like, there's so many more people here now. I'm running a company now. Yeah. It turned into like a whole different thing. And then when you're getting help, you're like, you got to think like this. You got to think like this.
It was a CEO Greg decision.
It was a total like that joke. Like, shit. It wasn't. And there's people here who absolutely are like, no, you made the right call. And I don't hear anyone who comes to me in person and tells me, but I do wonder about stuff like that. I was at the end of the day. I am back and forth about it because I do care about connection with audience. Because I care about being, even in this position, it's hard for me to just be a total asshole about shit. So when it comes to reviewing movies, I get when you put the word review and you're doing a video that it frames you as a critic right away. I totally get that. But sometimes the approach is not because we're trying to shill or placate. We just care to be respectful because I know how hard it is to overcome writer's block. Yeah. How many writers do we hear? How many working screenwriters talk about this as a real thing? And it all starts there on the page for someone to overcome writer's block and figure shit out. And then it turns into this and this and this. And then before you know it, you got Avengers. You got some like crazy ass big thing. Or you got a really impactful independent movie, which is it's a much more difficult struggle. So why not try to be like cool about it?
And that's why I went on a rant during the interview we did for your show where I was a guest. I really always try.
Clarifying.
Come on. Greg wants his ego. It's Greg's show that I guested on. Yeah. But
it's not a we thing.
No. That wasn't we. That was Greg.
Was there with me thing.
Greg, I merely showed up. My point was I went on a little diatribe about how I don't think everything is perfect, but I will always look to find the best in the thing, even if I don't like it. Because I think art's a miracle. And I think that we both have seen creatives and are creatives, and thus we never want to hurt creatives because it's such a soul-bearing experience to make anything. Art is sharing your soul. The thing I think separates us from animals is the ability to articulate storytelling. What we do is so unique as a species that oral traditions turned into cave paintings, turned into drawings that had narrative, turned into, over time, the magic of cinema, and that is always a gift. So to not think everything is a 5-star. I've given 25 films 5 stars in the history of the 4,000 movies I've watched. I'm not saying everything is perfect. What I am saying is nothing is so bad it doesn't have value. And that is literally, I've left movies before, but I would never say it was valueless because someone might have gotten something out of it. So I think the place I'm coming from with this channel and with my experience with art is even if I react to something that I don't enjoy, I do always try to find something in it that has merit. And I think South Park scared me because I found merit in the message. I just didn't like the way the message was delivered. And I was so afraid of that video coming out. But I hate the fact that we're in a position of, I shouldn't have to feel nervous about a video coming out. I shouldn't have to feel, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the point. And I think I've gotten to the point in my career where I've been positive so long, anytime I even touch on negativity, people are so vitriolic. They just come out of the woodwork. And like this recent thing with Superman, we just had that from last episode, that clip. The most harsh things that people found were like me, I love Eternals, and people being like, oh, he liked Eternals more than BVS, and that means he's a shill. No, it means I liked Eternals. And like when people were there, one of the things that got clipped so many times was like that clip with me talking about like the Ayer cut, which I want to see. But I had said something like, no disrespect to anyone that disagrees, but I would personally rather see the Schumacher cut than the Ayer cut at this point. I grew up with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. Right. What's wrong with me wanting my childhood continued on over a movie that like I didn't connect with as much as those? But instead, an entire contingent made it a negative when I literally spelled out in clear black and white writing, this isn't negative, this is my take. And I think it's really dangerous. We're at a point in society where even if you give all of the asterisks and you give all the caveats, people are still so dim and so wanting to be aggressive and like looking for that fight that they'll be like, oh, let me control S this director's name and attack anything that isn't exactly my worldview. I like Zack Snyder. I like Deborah Snyder. I can't wait for the UFC movie Zack's going to do. But because I don't see the way he sees some characters exactly how this loud contingent does, they disprove anything else I have to say, and that's so unhealthy societally. Like, tribalism is so dangerous when it becomes aggression. Like, we are movie lovers. Why are we movie lovers with a side of warfare? It doesn't make any sense, especially over a character about hope. So I really struggle with the movie culture right now being about a dick measuring contest of I love something more than you or I hate something more than you. There isn't anything except hyperbole. You can't have a nuanced take, and if you love something, it's about comparing your aggressive love, not just like, wow, that was a beautiful experience.
I have a theory of when this all really started to happen.
The internet.
I think before that.
Oh, please.
I think the thing that was breeded before the internet. You said something to me before we were filming, or I don't know, were we filming? Doesn't matter. It's probably not on
at this
video.
Point. I don't know.
About, like, I asked, were you a happy child?
Oh, yeah.
And you said you were until you became a public figure. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I wasn't a happy child, you know? And I know that. I was aware. And I was saying that the character I had most identified, that's why I identified the most with Dexter.
We didn't get there. You were about to say who it was. Okay, now we're in. I was waiting for us to get back to this point.
Well, I said Dexter because as much as I felt like I learned coping mechanisms of personality traits from Conan O'Brien, and I learned a lot about self-deprecation in a way that I think really did help my life from Conan O'Brien. Matthew Perry's Chandler, like that was my go-to personality to try to hone in on, but Dexter was the character I saw putting up the act and was really empty on the inside. So it was like weird to be like a young person. Wow, I had the first dramatic character I didn't identify with.
This murderer,
a serial killer. What do you know? You know, and I think that's the weird thing is I think a lot of people actually feel that with Dexter, and that's why they've connected with this guy for so long, who is not a good person.
On his 6th reboot.
I know, God,
that's how much people connect.
Are so bad. They're so bad. The last season, I don't want to go on a diatribe.
But I'm saying, speaking of that, so much people connect. Like, you're not alone.
But you see what I just did right there? I completely forgot. I want people to know as well. I mess up all the time, even as much as I might preach this value that I very much appreciate. As a person, it takes an active discipline for me to remember sometimes to just be a more respectful person when I'm talking about something.
That actually, I really appreciate you saying that, because one of the tweets, the Eternals tweet that so many people are upset about, that is literally people making videos, which is so flattering in its own way. People would take the time to make a video about your opinion. Thank you, internet. But it's literally, the tweet was trigger an entire fan base with just the greater than symbol. And I was like, I'm in a bad mood. I want to, and I still said it as respectfully as I could. But even I, who am all sorts of like, everything's good, still had a moment of weakness of like, I'm in a bad mood. And it's really, no one can be perfect all the time. And it's really hard when you know at the end of the day, everyone's just coming at it emotionally. Everyone that's on social media is looking to have an emotion at something. And I think that's really unhealthy.
Here's what I think it happened.
Please.
You know, I've been obsessed with this Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix. Yeah. Vince McMahon is the reason we have wrestling so big. And I am not a wrestling follower. In the past, Speaking of things you learn from, in the past, people that when we used to have like patron video requests, I realized like we were getting requested videos and they would, submit money to us, and I would feel like, but I'm not really interested in this, and I feel like I'm doing them a disservice at this point now.
Yeah, I got there too.
So like with wrestling, that was one of them. We would watch it, and I never really quite appreciated, other than the fact I could tell like it was great stunt work, But that documentary really showed me why it was so impactful. Like I have such a respect for wrestling, and I also have like so many things. Like, how much was it wrestling also? Like not Vince McMahon, like what wrestling became. There's the respect you got to put on the name for what he was able to pull off in terms of business, but there were some like truly ugly things the guy did. Like some terrible, horrendous things. There's a reason he got brought back and let go right away. Like there's terrible things. But we're talking about wrestling. And when I was watching the section about attitude era of wrestling, do you watch wrestling at all?
No, not my thing.
They call the attitude era of
I know
wrestling.
of it.
Yeah,
like
so
attitude.
When there's the attitude era of wrestling, and then they're showing like, on the media as well, there was like Jerry Springer. But I feel like though with wrestling, that was the first time people were following, and I could be, this is all my own personal theory, not based in any type of research really, right? Is that it was around that time when the way people were consuming media, particularly with wrestling becoming, I didn't realize how big wrestling was in the media. I didn't realize how big it was, like this huge thing. And people were like literally being so mean in the crowd to the performers. That's what a big part of it was. And to feed that anger, feed that rage. And that was the first like fictional narrative thing people were following, because there's an actual active storyline where you're rooting loudly against characters and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's when the impact with narrative started to happen. That's just my personal theory with how insensitive we are when it comes to like, this is what'll get the people's attention.
I think you're not wrong. I think that was a step up the ladder.
Yeah,
that was a step up the ladder to where we are now. And I think it's going to get worse because the ladder's not done. I think there's an element of removal of humanity with celebrity culture. I think, therefore, it's easy to yell at an inanimate object. And if an inanimate object happens to be a person, that person doesn't care. The way people talk to us online, we're not people to them. We're items to be mad at. And I think wrestling was, dehumanizing, but I also think celebrity was dehumanizing because people think actors make millions of dollars. So when the fires were happening, everybody was like, oh, good, let them burn. That was terrifying to see that humanity hates an entire population, and it happens to be where we live. Like, it's really scary that, by making art that is artificial in some people's eyes, that the person that made the art becomes artificial. The dehumanization of it is a part of it that I think was exacerbated by wrestling. But I also think even in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, it was, people would be upset and it would be like writing a letter. Like Michael Keaton getting cast as Batman. WB got flooded with thousands of letters protesting him being cast. That was because the internet didn't exist for them to come together and cause a problem. I think humanity is always going to have.
It's so sad when people do that.
Terrifying.
It's just so sad.
But I think people are always inclined to negativity because it's easy. Negativity is not vulnerable. I talk about this all the time. But I think the internet allowed people to come together and find bonds over it, and there wasn't anything to break it. There wasn't Furious from Boys in the Hood to stop and go, this is how this is going to go. And instead, people just glob together. And I think we're living in a very lonely time, and isolation. People are isolated together.
Yeah.
And that makes anger, and that makes emotion, and that makes a feeling of oppressiveness. And some people are oppressed, but some people are using that oppression to lash out. And I don't know what the solution is, but it's why I go to cons, because no one's going to pay $100 to be a dick. Like, no one's going to be like, here's some money so I can be mad at you in public. But on the internet, it doesn't cost anything to be a bad person. So I don't know if movies and the movie culture can come out of it, because I think part of it's human nature, and it scares me a lot.
And that's what I mean. We're so aware of you're dealing with live action like performers in the wrestling side. That's why I was relating it to that, with them being like, sometimes they were just people.
Yeah.
Because Vince McMahon was a character in it, And I feel like we treat but celebrities, I don't know, it's such a complicated part. I feel like we got to get to the main part, because this is for a second episode. We are like zigzagging all over the place.
I don't know what the title of this is.
Yeah, I know. I like what we're talking about, but I'm like, it gets to a certain point where you go,
give me the title.
There
Greg.
are cameras here. We should probably get to the actual thing that we were talking about.
I'm with you. What are we talking about?
I wanted to start off first by trying to unpack really what a shill is.
Okay.
Because I used to think it was, I never looked up the word. I used to think it was someone who was like paid for something, or I guess, you know, before actually asking that question, the reason I'm asking that question is because the internet has two components. You get mad about being a shill, about that being the accusation. I get annoyed by that too. Sometimes I get really mad. The other side is some people are obviously negative just for clicks.
Yeah. And nobody gets mad at them for that to scale.
I think the ones who get mad, it doesn't, to me, it looks like there's more people who are mad when they're called shills than for those negative guys. I don't really follow them, but for those negative guys, or whatever you want to call it, to be not as bothered when people are mad at them for doing the videos.
Because you just look away. Like, I think that people that are doing well, I think people that have their mental health in a good place at the time don't follow people that are spending time recycling anger, and therefore there's no word because there's not like someone feeling persecution about their ignorance. Like, no one's doubling down on it. So there's not like a title because it's just like, okay, I won't watch that. But for some reason, people feel emboldened to attack people that are celebrating stuff.
I'm saying, what would be the strength in being if we wanted to be a shill? What is that to you?
I don't know what the word the definition is.
I don't know. It's like how the word woke evolved into like.
Do you know what the word woke actually like? It's just being aware and being like head on a swivel. Yeah. Like the word woke is.
This is the wokest shit you're saying, Coy.
But like
bringing up the definition of woke.
But woke is a black culture term that's been appropriated, much like snowflake. Like snowflake is about us not being these unique, special little things. And it was written by a gay man that was figuring out his sexuality.
I didn't know. What? You're totally educated.
Really? Okay, so snowflake is literally a commentary on us feeling like we're one of one, we're unique, we're the only of that thing, and how that's fragile. And like,
but where does it originate
Chuck
from?
Palahniuk's Fight Club.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that.
And so Chuck Palahniuk was exploring his sexuality and figuring out he was gay while writing Fight Club. So all of these idiots are literally using a gay man's term. And woke was a very important black cultural term about being aware of your surroundings, much like the movies we're experiencing and having our experience. Yeah. Stay woke is keep your head on a swivel, be prepared, be aware. So all of these people that are saying like, oh, you're woke, it's like, yeah, you're so aware. And so like DEI, like diversity, equality, inclusion. This DEI thing got people killed. Tell me, are you upset at us being diverse or us being equals or us including people? What upsets you? The inclusion, the equality, or the diversity? It's all gross, but it's a very smart thing. It is taking away the power of words by making the word repeated so many times it becomes nothing. Yeah. Like when you say someone's name over and over again, it sounds weird. When you say a word over and over again, like in an acting exercise, the word loses meaning. So these people that are weaponizing stupidity are reusing the word till it loses its value. Black culture lost the word woke. The people that are oppressed that had like snowflake became a term against the very man who said it. And it's the irony of weaponizing words that are of a different culture that's taking the power away. And I think that the other people that are doing okay with their mental health don't do that. So there isn't a term that's anti-shill because people are just enjoying celebrating stuff. They're not worrying about the other side.
You're so true about the word game because a lot of these terms, it's like, I would totally agree that the context of the words has a different meaning suddenly.
It's like Alanis Morissette with literally.
It's like not a compliment to say woke. Like,
we lost ironic and literally in the 90s. We lost woke and snowflake in the 2000s. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Snowflake is such a nice word too. So it's such a, think about the word.
So clean.
It's so clean.
And
Snowflakes
white,
are so lovely.
And lovely and fluffy. Like it's so pristine, glassy.
I get how you can use it as an insult, but why? Why take snowflake from us?
And it's Fight Club, which is so funny because that was the basis of our first.
But it does become a thing where while the context of it can change, the definition of it is like nowhere to be found. Like you can't actually define it.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a strange thing when it starts off as a definition. And so maybe there's some words we should go back to respecting their roots. And maybe there's other words I haven't thought of in my brain right now that is fine with the modern understanding we have of it now.
Ironic and literally break my heart. That ironic has ironically lost its meaning.
Literally does, man.
And literally is literally not about the literal. So it's the new ironic and literally died so that snowflake and woke could die next.
What's this thing where some people laugh and they go, I'm dead?
I don't. That's more pop culture. That's like skibbity bop. Like I don't understand what Gen Z's doing.
I hear people our age doing it.
Well, that's because they're trying to be young and we're dying, Greg. That's clinging to the awareness of mortality.
Olivia does it.
Is she friends with a lot of youngs?
She's friends with people. No, all our age.
Okay.
Our age are mainly children.
Could be the youths.
Yeah.
But
the children of the people she's friends with.
Oh, I see. But I think there's something to be said about the.
It's cute when it's used, but I don't remember where it comes. Why are we deviating so much today?
I don't know.
All right. So. We got too comfortable with how real we can
We
make
were so happy with episode 1. We're like, what if?
because in real
No bounds.
I do have the definition of shill.
Please.
Oh, John has the definition of shill. What is it, John?
All right. An accomplice of a hawker, gambler, or swindler who acts as an enthusiastic customer to entice or encourage others.
So I like that. I like knowing that.
I like that.
Yeah. Where do I got these dollars? What's so funny is I never make money on stuff I love. It's so that's interesting because I could see that weaponized because but that's the implication that nothing is good about the art. Because gambling is just losing money. So the implication is we're hired by someone to peddle wares like snake oil. But the implication is nothing's worth it. So once the movie comes out and it's good, were you still a shill?
Yeah, I don't know what. I mean, it would appear that if you're one of those channels who trashes. No, I've seen a few of them at. There's a guy who I've seen all the time on the channels, and that he's nice though. The few times I've talked to him in person, he's been really nice. But I noticed that channel will usually have the negative leaning slant, and I see him on there all the time. But he's always at the Disney press screenings that I've been to. So to me, I feel like that's a solid
proof of
you don't need to be a shill.
Whereas we're pretty positive, and boy oh boy, are we not getting screenings.
Yeah. I totally forgot his name, but yeah, every time I talk to him, he's really nice. Talked to him for a little bit on Mufasa, and you bet your ass we agreed on Mufasa. We really did.
I also don't know, I don't understand the implication to seek out more negativity when there's so much of it. I don't know, when people get mad at me for not being more negative, I just wonder, there's plenty of that in the world. It's not like you can find another 100 channels of it. It's do you need more? Because you could just click on YouTube, just the app.
What would be the benefit of us being a shill, though?
I don't know. We certainly don't make the money.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What is the real benefit? Because it feels like it pays more to be negative.
Right.
So why it doesn't seem logically smart to be a shill?
I think all the time that I would love if I could just go work somewhere that doom scroll sites or even the news. I would never work on the news because they only lean negative. I would never work on certain political platforms because they find the one thing and blow it up. But that's more profitable. That's why the news does it. That's why politics is that. So it is inherently more profitable. So
and I'll admit it works on me on my private time. What do you think I know about the channels? Because of course I've seen videos, and sometimes, and don't get me wrong, there's plenty of times where I am in agreement with certain subjects that are being. I'm I actually, for the most part, agree with this with the opinion stated in this video. It's happened a lot of times. However, what were you going to say? I feel like I'm more interested in what you're going to say.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I think there's a line between pandering and this faux woke thing.
Okay.
I wish there was a word for it. This misuse of woke, I feel is authentic to pandering at times.
Okay.
But because it puts you in the same boat as certain bad people, it's hard to discuss. The Marvels is a great example. I really struggled with how much I didn't enjoy the Marvels, but I hated the fact that it put me in a category of people that are so blind that they just assumed I was this piece of crap.
Everything becomes binary, right?
Yes, it's ones and zeros. So Agatha was a huge problem for me because I've spent 10 years of my life advocating for.
No one should call you a shill after Agatha.
Dude, but think about what I went through with Agatha. I've spent 10 years of my life advocating for marginalized groups, and all of those people turned on me within 2 reviews. And how does that make me feel about the people that I've literally defended that are oh, you're anti-LGBTQI because I didn't like Agatha? I have spent my career dealing with these assholes that don't respect you for you to turn on me immediately. So it's tricky because pandering does happen. There are absolutely choices made in every major art where it's we got to do this thing. But you can't call that out either because then you get lumped into that stuff.
Well, first off, I would just like to clarify that when Coy says all those people, he means the people in the comments there. I immediately saw the future.
Thank you, Greg.
What did Coy mean by all those people?
I thought it was clear.
I feel like but that's the fear, right?
Yeah.
Shit. How is this going to be? How many? You've had to have done that before, where you're how's this going to be interpreted?
Oh, it's my running operating system.
Right, and then sometimes we put out videos and wait, how's it going to be
That's
interpreted?
not what I meant.
This
Oh, God.
It's especially sucks when I'm like, this is really not what I meant, but I greatly fear.
But I see how you got there, and I didn't mean
paranoid
that.
about it.
Thank you for clarifying. I wouldn't have
But
seen
I
that
have
one.
no idea, honestly. Like, maybe no one went there, but I just got, this happens constantly. Most of the time, though, this is like when you're at a keyboard with an editing system and you're like, no one needs to hear this conversation. You know?
True. Communication is usually something we're good at. I'm usually less worried. But I think that we were discussing Agatha and all of that. What led to that? We are more derailing today. I felt it just now.
About being shills.
Yeah, I don't know how to communicate that we love art without being accused of that, because so many people are so ready to have anger come out of them.
Yeah, so what I wanted to point out with that, I called this video Fantastic Four. I wanted to call it Reading the Fantastic Four hate comments. And I told Coy, hey, let's watch this on the actual trailer. We don't have to go to our reaction.
Okay.
And it sounds like a fun idea.
Yeah.
And normally I'm like, let me just, you know what? Let me preview the comments. And I kept scrolling, and I was like, it is unusually extremely positive in these comments.
That's amazing, dude.
And I really feel like I'd be hunting down here.
Oh, that makes me so happy, man.
And, you know, but then it becomes like nitpick things. And what I'm saying is like the top comments and the most engaged. Now, someone might just, I wanted to say that, which got me thinking about what's a shills. This is the way my brain works, right? And I thought, okay, but once I say this on camera, people are going to be like, well, it's because, you know, it's Disney controlling the system and everything. But I'm like, I don't know. I've kind of like been around the YouTube comment boxes long enough that you can't really shut that shit down too much.
Not to the scale. They've got millions of subscribers.
I mean, you can, but I don't feel like their track record would beg to say with the Marvel
that they have the budget to have someone on that every 5 minutes.
Yeah. So like the comments on it are primarily extremely positive, and it's actually really cool to see. Like I'm excited that people are excited.
Yeah.
You know, because it does feel like with Marvel that it gets to that point where even I'm there like, okay, yeah. You know, and some people are like, no, I hate it. But I get there internally.
I mean, we're a week out from Cap 4. I'm really curious how that goes.
I'm really curious how that's what I mean. And obviously Captain America 4, for whatever reasons, you could definitely, maybe that's the video. You could definitely put a lot of reasons as to why there's a lack of hype to that.
Can I admit something?
People are with Fantastic Four, not the same thing at all.
I'm worried about Fantastic Four. I mean, I'm worried about Cap 4.
In what capacity?
Navigating, reviewing it. Because it's a movie that I am very...
Oh, you're worried about yourself reviewing this.
This feels like Agatha episode 3, where I've seen the people in the comments. I should clarify, the people in the comments. I've seen the people in the comments about my experience, and I'm already going into this movie afraid of navigating how I will feel, whether I like it or don't like it. I feel like it's going to be something I have to die on this shill. Like if I don't like it, I'm going to have to defend that it is something that is a product of a bunch of rewrites and reshoots and all that stuff. And if I do like it, I'm going to have to defend that I liked it because people are like, you like everything. Like it's a week away as of filming this. I'm already exhausted, and the movie's not in my eyeballs yet.
But why do you feel like you have to defend yourself?
Insecurity. Because like it's coming from a place
you
of...
said that so confidently. I'm insecure, bro.
I think that I want to make sure my opinion is my own, and I hate the fact that I worry about others influencing it, but I know that my opinion is usually positive, and I know that I exist in a medium that is usually negative. So my defensiveness comes from, I know I'm going to be swimming upstream no matter what, but if I don't like the movie, I'm not going to want to crap on it, but everybody's going to be looking for my opinion. If I do like the movie, I've got to deal with the people. So like I'm insecure about the fact that I care at all, because these people don't matter. Like, I don't know these people.
You know what? I'm just going to say I understand. I feel like any advice I'd give you, you've probably heard everyone give you the same exact
advice. It's just navigating being a human being on the internet, which I'm working on not doing.
Because I could totally say all the opposite things. I'm so tempted to still go into it. But I will not go into it.
But, I mean, I don't think that's healthy. Like, our job is to experience art and share our experience. Like, that's what we've chosen to do with our lives. So it's not pleasant that it's not even out yet, and it's like, ooh, apprehension.
I was under the impression because I kept getting, and maybe I was just psyched out by a few comments. I was under the impression there was like a lot of backlash.
On Fantastic Four?
Yeah.
I think it was mainly just that Reed didn't stretch. That's all I kept seeing. Why didn't they show that? That's all I saw. people. This is also tribalism. People are really loudly trying to find flaws in Superman, so they're bringing up how good Fantastic Four looks. I've seen a fair amount of that. That could also be my algorithm because I'm very Superman heavy.
That's a very fair point.
Like
Actually,
you see the little corner of your own world of internet. So it's also tricky because like I usually don't talk about music, but I covered the Grammys. Like I live tweeted the Grammys, and I didn't realize how much hate Doechii gets. Like Doechii is one of my favorite artists working, and I literally could not find her album for 5 months of hunting it down, and a fan helped me find it in Northern California. We got it mailed to a Barnes & Noble here so I could get the album. Like, I'm a big fan, like, sought this out, and as soon as I started tweeting about her more than casually, now I'm seeing tons of hate at Doechii I didn't know existed because she got suddenly a spike in popularity because of the Grammys. So it's funny that even acknowledging something that you like causes an awareness of negativity. So since I've talked about Superman so much more the last 2 years, my feed is now like, don't you just hate Superman? And that was not there before.
Is it an algorithm or someone like I guess it could. It's a combination of both. That's the part about algorithms that are so scary. Is that it like feeds like the parasite. You know, an algorithm very much is in its own way.
Parasite for sure.
Yeah, it's a virus in its own way, right? Like the best algorithms, and we all rely on them. We totally rely on. You have to work an algorithm, right? But I feel like the way it operates is parasitic in its own way.
I worry about liking anything because of that. That's why I didn't want to cover music for a long time because I wanted it to be precious. I didn't want it to be tainted by other people's experience of it.
Yeah, I engaged with one hate comment, and then I find out I'll find more, or maybe it's just I'm focusing on them more. I don't know.
I've got that I've told you my hot stove thing, right?
Yes.
Like that's my whole thing. Like if you
can repeat it if you want.
Oh, okay, thank you. When you clean the stove, because you should clean your stove, you don't remember cleaning the stove. Like that becomes a blur of cleaning. But the one time you touch the stove and it's hot, like if you're moving a pot or something, you'll remember that forever. And I feel like you can have 100 positive comments, but the one negative is touching the stove. So it's like, because I think we're fight or flight based. Like we as creatures are supposed to run from the tiger. So evolution says, oh, someone said I did something wrong. I've got all of these chemicals in my brain that are saying, how do I change so I don't do something wrong again? Even if it's not wrong, your brain reads that person saying a negative as, ooh, I did it wrong. So it sears into your mind. So people, I mean, you even told me with the clip outs of Superman, you and Roxy are both like, dude, so many people love what you had to say. But I was like, no, everyone hates me.
Yeah.
It's the hot stove. All I remember is negativity. Part of that is my own problem, but part of that is, I think, human nature. And I think that's also how these negative people get to thrive because the human brain is wired to evolve. We're supposed to fix our mistakes. We're not supposed to fix the things that are going well. So we don't remember the things that are going well. We remembered what were perceived as mistakes.
That's very true. Okay. As I'm looking at these comments, I gotta say, I am now questioning. There seems to be a lot of fake comments here.
Like bots?
Yeah, and a lot of that, like, awesome video, looking forward to the next one. Awesome, like, for so many different accounts and stuff. So what I said earlier, I'm like, well, maybe there is some cleansing here in the comments.
Interesting.
But I don't know. But you see, this is what happens. I've noticed. I feel like the way my brain operates, I'm sure a lot of people do in group think sort of way. Of I just went from I'm excited about this, then once excitement goes down, I start to like look at what people might not like. I don't know. It's kind of like that No Way Home later on effect, where it was like this movie's perfect, and then later on it was like, let me tell you what, this movie's like really flawed film, you know?
Yeah.
And there became like an influx of that. Like with it. And I feel like we kind of speed that along now just in the marketing with movies.
If I didn't have Real Rejects and DC, I would be living in the woods and only engaging with pop culture with my opinions and not. Yeah. But because of that, what you just described, I've literally thought about moving to Ireland and not having anything to do with pop culture except my own output. So I could be a variable that was only affected by I don't want to know anyone else's stuff. It's my experience. My experience with art is unilaterally mine. So like reading stuff like that will inform your take. And I don't think that's good. So like, also like whether or not it's real, if it is real, you don't know this person. Why does their opinion matter? That's why I'm always so confused that people are like, oh, I didn't see that movie because so-and-so didn't like it. Are you so-and-so? What if you would have liked it? What if you missed out on 2 amazing hours of your life? But if you find someone that you think follow, I think Rotten Tomatoes has skewed a sense of reality because if you follow an individual reviewer, you might see more eye to eye with them more often. And that could inform whether or not your hard-earned money is worth that movie. But if you just blindly look at a number and opt out because a number of critics thought it was a pass-fail, because that's how Rotten Tomatoes works, is whether or not you see it as a binary, and then they add up that binary to give you that percentage number. So it's literally a number of a number of a number. So you're looking at this obscure number that has nothing to do with personal preference or experience and going, I will have that life experience or not. So I never want to have anyone's experience that could not possibly be mine inform anything I have to do.
Would there be a slight argument to be made, though, that sometimes, I mean, even me personally, I will watch a movie because someone said to go watch it.
The other way, 100%.
Why is the other way acceptable to you, but not the opposite
way? Because you're adding to your life, not subtracting. And you're also having something be, I was unaware of something good. I've heard that restaurant's great. I'm going to check it out. That is adding because of enough hype building up. Like, you need the build up to get through you can only know so much. So I've never heard of this movie. Oh, this has entered the zeitgeist because of positivity. Yes. But if you've seen a trailer and you were excited for it and all of a sudden a bunch of people didn't like it, you're subtracting from your experience.
You know, I think at the end of the day, I do agree with you fully on it, because I don't. There are movies I'll definitely put off or lose interest in when people are saying don't watch it, right? Mm-hmm. But it never solidifies my decision. Like, a lot of times I just end up still watching it.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes I just want a movie that sounds bad that I don't need to really pay attention to.
And there's a lot of times people, like, I loved Red One. If I'd listened to people, I would have missed out on a really, like, my experience with Red One was so boisterous. People started walking out of the theater and I was like, I'm having the best time. What are they watching? And it was in real time. I watched people walk out. And I was like, man, if I had listened to that person, whoever they are, that's leaving right now, I wouldn't have the next hour and a half. And at the end of the day, like, I don't know that person. They don't matter.
But I like all personality types. Even if I like a movie, I like all. I think that's the side with the negative side of the channels, though, that I think is an interesting element. Is there are some channels where I feel like get put into a certain camp where I'm like, I don't really feel like they belong there. There's this one YouTube channel, and maybe, John, maybe you agree with me. Maybe I'm looking for validation here, John. The Cosmonaut Variety Hour. I feel like he's often put into that camp, and I feel like there's a lot of comments who would agree of, you know, he's not like a big red text thumbnail, like big eye kind of. I feel like the way he articulates, he might not like a lot of things he talks about, he might not end up liking, or he will find flaws in things that people find like perfect or whatever. And sometimes he can have like his humorous, snarky approach to it. But I think he's so well articulated, and he still gets, again, it's the binary thinking, right? Yeah, like he gets put into like, oh, he's a big problem of what contributed to the culture, and I'm like, I wouldn't say that about
him in
particular. So but I'm bringing that up to say, like, I disagree with him so much of the time, but I love his videos. I love them.
I don't know if I've ever told you this. I don't watch any movie or comic content. I don't watch anyone's reviews. I don't watch anyone's like a breakdown of trailer. I don't care.
I believe when I first met you, you said, I don't know you.
Yeah, I was like, Coy? Nice to meet you. No, but like, I don't consume what we make. My TikTok algorithm is literally like people reuniting at airports and like people adopting puppies and people helping homeless people out. Like, my algorithm, it's so interesting when I look at people's algorithm, like what I output and what I input are the polar opposite. I care about humanity. I don't care about other people's opinions on humanity. So like other people's opinion of art will only change my opinion of art. I don't know why people watch what I do. Like, because it's my experience. I'm grateful and I'm so appreciative I have people that care about my opinion.
You can't draw a conclusion, though?
Why? Or what's your question?
Why people watch what you do?
I can draw a conclusion for others, but I can't draw a conclusion for what would get me to change my mind. I can see the appeal of like saving time and money, and I'm glad I can bring that value to them. And also I think like articulation of ideas and bringing awareness. Yeah, that's what it is. I think that people can get new ideas from what I bring. I think my life experience means that like they can see something differently because I'm bringing them something new. My perspective is very, very specific, and that would be different from their perspective. That's something. But when it comes to art, I don't care about many other people's perspective. But when it comes to other things, like you and I watch many of the same podcasts, but none of those are about movies. They're about life experiences.
Weirdly,
do you know what I mean? Like
my favorite movie, just to shout them out, Weekly Planet is my favorite one.
I listen to Dissect a lot, which is a podcast about music. I love dissecting music. And that's the closest I get to looking at art, but that's more about, I wouldn't have ever known this was a sample from a 1976 jazz song. Like I wouldn't have ever known that rhyme references someone in the 40s. Like that, my brain doesn't have that data. But I think it's interesting that people in the movie space watch other people's movie stuff because it would just cloud my experience.
That is an odd thing, actually.
Yeah.
What you said.
Because whenever you talk about YouTubers, I'm like, who?
I think one interpretation, like I said, I'm in that weird mindset right now where I find the paranoia in something. Sometimes I just get there in real life. And I feel like someone could interpret that as like a sense of arrogance.
I'm a very arrogant person.
but my opinion matters. Don't. I don't know if that's what you're saying at all.
No.
I wouldn't even say they would draw that conclusion.
They might.
I would say that yours is like, I don't know I actually don't know what the negativity. You kind of fathom it in a certain way of like what was said, and that's the part that is so interesting about what you just said, because it's interesting to have that experience. I'm like, oh, I know what. If I heard someone say that online, I might draw a different opinion about that person. But because I know who you are in real life, I'm like, oh, actually, I have a very different emotional response to that.
I think it goes back to the insecurity thing. Like, my opinion is the only opinion that matters to me.
Okay.
But I'm insecure when I let other people affect, was I wrong? But like my opinion, I don't understand when it comes to an experience of art. It's not like art can hurt you. It's not like if I have an opinion that's political or something that's about the real world, I'd love to get more data. I'd love to be informed about that opinion. But I don't need to be more informed about art because it can't cause anything beyond your experience of art. So I think I'm okay with I don't care about other people's opinions about it because I want mine to be very focused.
In what ways do you think we have been shills, if you were to say?
I think there are times I'm afraid of hurting people, and so I'm a little bit gentler. And that's about the individual. Like if I'm aware of an actor, a writer, a director, and they did their best, I'm going to be way more gentle because I couldn't do it. Like I can't direct, I can't, you know what I mean? So I guess would be close. There are times that I've had a really positive experience that was clouded by the overall experience more than the movie. I think a great example is Thor: Love and Thunder. The first time I saw Thor: Love and Thunder, it was in a riotous theater. I had just had a great meal. I had 2 margaritas in me, and I was like, yeah! And then like 2 days later, I was like, maybe not, yeah. And that might have been, maybe it was talking about a movie more positively than I overall felt about it, but I genuinely meant it at the time, and I think shilling implies you didn't mean it. But at the time, when talking about a movie, that was my experience. It changed, but I think life changes your experience.
Yeah.
So I think the closest would be if I'm aware of someone that I care about, or if I'm like, that was really impressive, but I couldn't do it, or if it's something that context changed over time, and I'm like, I kind of regret that thought. But at the end of the day, like, when you watch a movie as a kid and then you watch a movie 10 years later, your Letterboxd score might change. I don't think you were shilling because your life experience was different younger.
Well, then let me ask you this. What do you think about the Jurassic World trailer?
I love Jurassic Park so much that the Jurassic World experience is not the same. So I have to see it much more in the lens of like Fast and the Furious or like the latter day action world movie.
It's weirdly become that. It's become like a MonsterVerse movie now.
Yeah. So like it's not my thing to the same scale. I loved dinosaurs as a kid. Like I had dinosaur encyclopedias. I read Jurassic Park way too young. Had to reread it because I was relearning words. Like I read it young enough. I was like, some of these words aren't even known to me. Like I love dinosaurs. And that comes from Jurassic Park and Lost World. We talked about that in my interview on Greg's show. And I really think that was a formative experience for me as a kid, loving dinosaurs like so many kids, but especially 90s kids. So it's hard for me to see what Jurassic Park became with Jurassic World. And this looks like it's not the reboot into the old that I wanted it to be. I wanted the new trailer to be like, Jurassic Park is back. But instead, it's called Jurassic World because Jurassic World is back. So I'm happy for people that like the World franchise, but I'm not as excited as I would be if they made a new Park film.
I feel like I would be under the impression, this is where I get confused, right? I would be under the impression that if I hear Jurassic World, people don't like everything you just said about it. I'm like, that's what I feel like most people feel with the Jurassic World movies.
Yeah.
But people keep showing up. And so
it makes billions every time.
They make billions every time. And I'm like, it can't just be a bunch of people being like, let's hope, like there's got to be people, there's got to be like billions of people who like, or something that like really love this movie, this new version of Jurassic Park, right? And I feel like people are a little bit shy about that too, in publicly. Like I don't think it's to the degree of like a comic book franchise or some shit like that.
It doesn't have the same level of animosity.
Because I feel like there's a gray level with the Jurassic World franchise for me in particular. I really love the first Jurassic World movie for what it is in a very positive, sincere way. Like I really love that movie. I think it is so fun. I really don't like the next two. I said it's kind of sad.
I know.
Heartbreaking.
I love that even you were like, you're like, as I talk about it, I am shy about my experience. As I call people shy about the experience.
But but everyone will go. That's where the Jurassic World franchise started, though. Was from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And Jurassic World, it is not Jurassic Park level good, nowhere near. But in terms of just like a fun action adventure monster movie with some horror peril to it, it's a fun time. I think it's a really fun time. It's like that weird rock and roll hits of dinosaurs of Jurassic Park, but in an action movie. I'm just glad they didn't call it Jurassic Park 4. I think there is a framing device that happens when you change the name.
And that's why I think I'm more accepting of Jurassic World 4. 'Cause I'm like, at least they're honest.
Yeah, right.
It's
How
not
different would it be?
But
if
at
it was,
least they're honest.
What would it be? Jurassic Park 6 at this point?
If they called it Jurassic Park
7.
7, I'd be way more upset. Jurassic World 4, I'm like, that's fair.
What if they just were like, the next one they do?
Jurassic Park 8?
4.
Oh, yeah, they just were like, disavow.
Wait, what is this?
Can we do this? We're back in the park?
Yeah.
I would probably be
They
more
DH
excited.
Sam Neill? Like, what's going on?
I'd be more excited for Jurassic Park 4, even just by title.
Right? Like,
And then I'd be more upset if it wasn't great.
Yeah.
But Jurassic World 4 is as advertised, so I can't be
Right.
mad at it. But it's not as much for me as Jurassic Park 4 would be.
It's weird how that happened with Jurassic Park, man. It's like Spielberg leaving the director's seat with Lost World, I feel like was an indicator. Like, hey, maybe it was just...
That's it.
Because even Lost World is an adaptation. And I don't know, maybe if there was a different director, it might have been successful or like received better or something like that. But I don't know how the book's received. I don't know if the book is like pales in comparison to the first.
They're using scenes in the book in this trailer. The Big Tree Rex scene is actually from the book from the first one.
Oh. Yeah, they got the writer from the original back.
Yeah,
So
which all those ingredients sound great, and I'm hopeful, but I like the trailer didn't add hope, it added caution.
I think what happened is everything that I heard before I watched it did not reflect the trailer I watched.
I agree.
You know, like I heard Gareth Edwards,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, the guy who made my favorite Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's probably my favorite Godzilla. I mean, Godzilla -1 is definitely like a better movie. I think it's more
Best movie, favorite movie are different
logically,
things.
it's more like, you know, subjectively, I would say Godzilla 2014. And the one where Godzilla's barely in it, but I love the usage of. Anyway, that felt like monsters were real again.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I love that so much. And it's like not since Jurassic Park, you know, that like this feels real. And David Koepp, the first one who made the, I say Koepp because like fast because I'm not sure if I'm saying it right.
Koepp? Because it's K-O-E-P-P. Koepp?
But doing the first Jurassic Park movie, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, this might
All
be
the ingredients are back.
The images, like, oh, there's just ominous image of just Mahershala Ali holding this flare, you know, and then I saw the trailer, like, this looks sillier than the last few. Like, this looks so much sillier.
Suddenly the image is in motion. I'm like, I don't know.
And it's a fun trailer. Like, I'm like, yeah, it might be like my Jurassic World experience, but as it post-reaction later on, now thinking about it, I'm going, oh, it's actually missing, though. I don't feel
wonder.
any horror peril or wonder. I think the horror peril is a big ingredient to that first film. You know, I get why some people don't categorize it as a horror movie.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who would argue that it is because of how effective the horror in it is actually.
Yeah.
And I feel Jurassic World had a fun monster horror vibe, like a fun monster movie, not what the greatest of Jurassic Park was. Yeah. So
Different franchises.
yeah, they are different. So yeah, I was admittedly like, and I'm kind of wondering, like, of course the trailer did well in views, and I do know that you can tell when trailer companies pay, even the big studios, you can tell when they do pay for, I don't know if Jurassic World did it. I haven't actually looked enough, but there's enough numbers where you can be like, oh yeah, this definitely is, the studio paid for this. There's like no one hitting the like button, barely any comments, but it's got like insane amount of views, you know?
Yeah.
This is a promoted ass, like, which is going to play as an ad that people will skip on YouTube, you know? And that kind of thing. And it cheats it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Jurassic World did that, but weirdly enough, with some trailer reactions, not saying like, I think there is a metric, even like beyond our reaction, people who have bigger trailer reactions than us, you can sort of tell by that metric, like, oh, I don't feel like the audience is as engaged with this one. Could be wrong.
There's also burnout. Like, I do think we are really mining into the 80s and 90s depths. Like, we have made a lot of these movies from our childhood.
I know, when you go to the 2000s now,
Yeah.
we always go back 20 years. Is Michael still here? Hey, Michael.
Oh, hey.
Sorry, buddy.
He's back. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to do, but I do think July is going to be the biggest movie in years month. Like, box office wise, I think July is going to be insane. I think we get a 3-way Barbenheimer. I think we get a super fantastic, because like that is an insane 1 week between Jurassic and Superman, and then 2 weeks later Fantastic Four. That's going to be crazy.
I think there's such a weird argument about box office that I never thought about until I heard a Martin Scorsese thing about how so much came down to just about box office. Because my mind immediately went like, well, yeah, give it the program, dude. Movie's got to make money, you know? Like that's where my mind first went to my favorite director of all time. And then I thought about it and I'm like, that's true. Like we touched on about it a little bit last time of movies rarely seem like they're going to be able to have that effect where they can grow in culture over time. Yeah. Maybe not be box office hits right out the gate. But now it seems like if you are a flop, that's where your identity is permanently.
We never got a Nice Guys 2.
I'm never getting Nice Guys 2. There's other movies, which is so grown in pop. That's a great example.
Right.
As a movie that has grown in popularity.
If that had happened in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, and it didn't do well in theaters, as it didn't, but was now the cultural conversation Nice Guys is, we'd have a Nice Guys 6 by now.
Yeah, or now we're at a point where like, okay, I guess they'll do it when they're like really old, and it's some weird sequel that's trying to be like the original from 20 years ago.
Great, a requel to the Nice Guys.
Yeah, and then like no one's gonna want that. But that's an excellent point about that. And so much does get placed on box office, and it's even harder to do a metric like that with the really expensive ass movies, like a big Marvel movie or an Eternal. Like I don't know what the growth of Eternal's engagement has become. If there's more love for it, that like, hey, maybe actually consider Eternals too. It doesn't seem like it from your end, of what you've been receiving online.
I live the Eternals life, Greg. It's dark out there.
But when we talk about July being the biggest month, we're talking about numbers here.
Yeah,
that's what we're first focusing on, right?
It's the business side of show business. The summer I consider when business is at its peak, and I consider the off months and the Oscar months be when show is at its peak. Like show business is an integral part of this art that we love. But I think that the summer is where all the weight for keeping the theaters open, the other chunk of the year weighs. Because I think Christmas is largely like a month, and then summer is like 3 to 4 to now because of Marvel 5 months, because they really start summer in like April. So like April, May, June, July, and August is like a half. That plus 1 in December are kind of the half of the year that keeps the theaters open the rest of the year. But I think the rest of the year gets to make weird, bolder choices. And then like some of that is bold choices that are like on the horror side in January, February, and then on the Oscar bait side and the weird like lead up to Oscars. But I think that the movies that come out in the summer don't get enough credit for being the tent pole ladder that holds up the carnival tent that is movie theaters. Like we need that pole in the center for the carnival to go on. The circus doesn't work without the tent. That damn pole is so important. So I will always respect to Jurassic World for keeping my theaters open. I will always respect to Jurassic World for the opportunity for a smaller film to have a place to play in front of audiences. So I will never disrespect a blockbuster movie because it allows me to see the weird stuff in between.
Well, I think we're also evolved at a point where blockbuster movies are not just blockbuster movies. Like a lot of times,
hopefully.
It depends on the blockbuster movie, like Craven. It depends on the blockbuster movie that we're talking about. But I think some of the greatest films of all time are blockbuster movies. It wasn't like Back to the Future a blockbuster movie. Wasn't Aliens a blockbuster movie?
But those movies have like nutrition to them, right? Like there are movies that are McDonald's, and there are movies that are Outback, and then there are movies that are gourmet meals. But like it's a sliding scale, I think, where you still need McDonald's for when you're on the side of the road at 2 a.m.
It seems that's the thing is that with these 3 movies, what's cool about I often have that debate about how much audiences are so aware about the business side of movies now that does affect being the ability to be transported back into the magic of a film experience, right? But this is a cultural thing. It's like it's weird when box office becomes cultural. Yeah. And July's box office is now going to be the talk of the year of what we're looking forward to. Because there are that other business conversation like cinemas are dying. It can be really bad. Streaming, all that shit. So totally like, we should be having that conversation. Absolutely. I just find it fascinating that as a collective now, as moviegoers, we're in on this like conversation so much about a movie's financial success. What sucks is when a financial success affects whether or not a movie is received well, because that tends to be this weird caveat to it, is not the conversation that it's a great movie. The conversation is that it failed at the box office.
That Monday conversation.
Yeah. And
I hate that.
That really sucks. It's like, I felt that way about Furiosa, you know?
Same, dude. Actually, that's a perfect example. That was when I was like, oh, are we screwed? cinematically. Like that movie coming out and not doing well was like, do we not do art now? Because that movie's great. Like I remember, and it was after like 2 other movies that were like medium scale didn't do well. There was like 3 weeks in a row where I was like, yeah, summer's starting in March, and then all 3 didn't do well, and I was like, oh no, our movie's over. Yeah. And I remember Furiosa. That's the akin to My the Nice Guys, where I was like, I hate that people aren't seeing it because other people didn't see it. Maybe you should see it because you wanted to see it. And that kind of ties into my earlier conversation about the critical experience of Rotten Tomatoes. Like, if you wanted to see it, don't wait to hear how other people thought of it. If that money was already set aside, go to the movies.
Yeah, you know what's cool though about this trilogy of July movies that people keep talking about is you can kind of go to them for like different experiences and different reasonings of why to go. Like Jurassic World Rebirth really is that. I'm just gonna go have fun, you know. I'm gonna go chew my popcorn and get my weird popcorn bucket now, and then whatever's probably. Oh my god, it's probably gonna be a really cool popcorn bucket from.
I hope it's like a T-Rex.
What will be the popcorn bucket? We haven't had the era of the Jurassic World. That's gonna be the greatest thing to come out of the. Yeah. I like that part of movie going culture. I don't buy every popcorn bucket,
but I love looking.
But I want to buy every popcorn bucket. Like I would love to buy every popcorn bucket. And then you have Superman, which is, to your point, one that people are going to want nutrition for, you know? And I think the same is for Fantastic Four, and they're both, it's weird how, like, one is expected, like, this has to work or else the DC universe is, like, doomed. And then the other one would doom. That one, I thought I was being clever. Then I
felt it. I thought you were going to lean in, but then you said it quiet.
I was
really like, Greg, it was right there.
I was like, felt the hype. Yes, and this doom bit.
I was ready.
Nah, I'm not feeling confident. I'm insecure.
All right.
I didn't hear loud enough laugh from you for me to proceed.
Because I was waiting for the punchline, and then you dropped the punch. You dropped it on the punchline.
A little bit of a snicker laugh, and then full laugh following, because I'm following.
Now you're directing me how to respond to you.
I'm just saying, man, it's a we show.
First he called me arrogant, then he was upset about the Us show. Doom.
on the Fantastic Four side, there is something really telling about that, where the trust with Marvel feels like if they get this wrong, I see why people say it's so much as riding on that one. Yeah. Because it's a trust game with them at this point of wanting to get back to you want to get to that consistency place. Like I thought M. Night Shyamalan might have been going there with his career. Once he did The Visit, it was like The Visit split. They did Glass, and I was like, "Oh man, my man, we were almost there.
We were right there.
We were just like anything Shyamalan does, you know." But then, but Marvel's not there, right? It's not there. It still feels like they need to like kind of prove themselves every time, and I feel like Fantastic Four is that for Marvel right now, where they do have to prove themselves in a way Superman, but in a completely different way Superman does.
I feel like Superman is a really, really exciting first date. And like you've talked online, you're like, ooh, we got a little chemistry. This is gonna be great. And like you're vibing. And I feel like Fantastic Four is like, do we move in together?
Okay.
We've already known each other a little while. Yeah. Do we take this to the next level? Things are interesting. Do we elevate this? And I feel like they're very different experiences.
It is neat that we're gonna have. What's the order they're coming out? Is it Jurassic World first?
Jurassic World a week later. Superman 2 weeks later. Yeah, I mean that's crazy. In 4 weeks. And in the middle of Smurfs, which obviously everybody's talking about.
yeah. There we go.
But Smurfs is also going to make a ton of money because so many kids.
Now put it in the description box.
Like, Smurfs is going to make, like, gangbusters. Smurfs is going to make so much money.
I haven't seen a single thing of Smurfs ever.
I haven't either, but, like, it's like Despicable Me date. Like, that sweet spot for kids in the summer, like, they're going to hit that Despicable Me Mario movie. Like, that's going to do crazy, I think.
That family gimmick never
those kids enjoying their art.
Bastards.
I'm really curious how the difference in the cultural conversation around superheroes is after the two. I mean, I just described them as a really, really hopeful first date and moving in together. But no matter what, that is a zeitgeist shift in your life. And I think we're going to have a zeitgeist shift in superhero culture after these two films come out, because they're both very interestingly about hope and about the bygone era. Like, they're both nostalgic. They're both about hope. They're both about wishing for greatness. They're both about arguably American myths. Like, it's not quite Americana in the sense that a lot of movies are, but it's like the Americana meets almost like Johnny Appleseed-ish myths. Fantastic Four is so intrinsically shucks, and Superman is a Boy Scout. Like, they're both very wholesome American myths.
Did we just lose everything? Oh my God. We lost everything turned off earlier. Just check the cameras, John.
And I'm hoping that means...
Whoa, Coy, we should wait to make sure your camera...
Oh, excuse me. Let me check my arrogance. I'm still on camera.
Yeah, so please. Thank you, John, for checking.
I'm hoping in much the same way costumes have evolved and tone has evolved, a sense of inherent good and wholesomeness that is these characters can pervade the cultural landscape because movies affect us and pop culture affects culture. These movies are so inherently vibrant and good. I hope we see hope and goodness as less cheesy after them. I saw people get more optimistic after Ted Lasso because the show got so popular. I saw people actually engaging in positivity. Superhero movies are that to the grandest scale. They make billions of dollars. I hope these two movies back to back can actually help people be better.
What I'm hoping for from internet culture is that let's just go with an assumption. Let's just play this reality out.
Yeah.
Not a reality, but we'll find out. Let's say Fantastic Four and Superman, so beloved. Let's just say like that's obvious, like high audience score, box office hits. I would love to see if that other side of internet culture, because I've seen them do it before, where they'll be like, "Hey, Dune 2 is actually pretty good." You know, like I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
I wonder if they can, but usually they have to put a slant on it, like Hollywood actually did something right, you know, or some shit. So yeah, but I would love to. I think that would. I want to see what I don't know how it would affect it. I guess that's what I'm curious to see is like what would be the impact of if that side of movie fan that we constantly like reference decided to go positive on it, and if that does have an effect, like oh my god, I guess it's like all right, I guess Superman is American or whatever the hell they think, you know. I don't know.
That alien, that alien from not from here, we welcome him. He can get his green card.
Well, this as a complaint, guys.
Come on in, Cal.
I wanted to do my Superman. I thought, like, you know, it would be a cool Superman alt movie if Jonathan Kent was like freaking abusive as shit. Like,
Brightburn? No,
he wasn't. He was just
a guy.
He was just an evil for no reason. Like, what if you just did an actual story of like, here's why Clark's parents were so important. And,
I do like the nature versus nurture, and that's why I like Supergirl so much because she knew her parents and lost them, and then had to raise herself for a time. And I was like, that is why she's so hard edged versus Ma and Pa Kent being like, we made a blanket out of your like that. That's so wholesome, but going an even further level of like, you grow up good.
Yeah, that's another reason why I'm excited for Superman. By the way, because he said Brightburn, and he was a producer on that.
Yeah,
it seemed like he was pretty involved with that.
He like promoted it, like it felt very hands on.
And obviously, it's like it's had its Superman inspirations from there. It was a riff on darker. Everyone knew what they were doing. Like it's like no, this looks like Man of Steel in the trailer, you know, and. I like that he's going to do the complete opposite now, where you kind of see where that observation and love came from. You know, yeah. So I have faith he'll pull a good one off.
What you just said about the internet reacting to it, I don't think the deepest, darkest recesses of the internet will ever give up on their grift, but I do think that the people in the middle of the road hopefully can find the positivity in their reviews and see a positive from the viewer. I don't think we have control over. The audience needs to want to seek positivity in order for positivity to succeed.
Of course.
Like the masses need to. So I think if the movie can affect the masses, then hopefully that trickles into the people that make movie content not getting as much out of negativity. That's why whenever people talk about certain people in our live streams, I'm always like, why? I don't care. And that's actually a great point to earlier.
Yes.
It's not coming from just a place of arrogance. There is arrogance, but I don't care. And I don't think I should care. And I don't understand why people do care. So, like, if the average person stops seeking out, let me find everything wrong with this, it'll stop being as profitable. Sure. And then we can grow. And I do think this is a teen phase. I think there is hope for the internet overall. I don't think we're broken all the way. But I do think teenagers have a point where they either pick up their life or they stay on that path and they peaked in high school. So I hope the internet doesn't peak in high school. I think there's hope, but we're reaching a point.
Sure. Well, okay, let's recap what we talked about. We talked about what it means to be a shill because they couldn't find any negative I mean, I've heard the negative comments, right? The thing looks weird. They don't like his voice and writing bland
I like
or
the
whatever.
voice. I wish we talked
There's
about
a lot
voice.
of assessments about the movie screenplay before
like
the
the voice?
screenplay has been heard enough. Heard some trailer lines. I hate the dialogue, and this whole script's gonna suck. You know.
I mentioned that we didn't hear Johnny Storm talk, so I don't know what tone he's gonna have. And people were like, "Yeah, he spoke. He said hi," and I was like, "Are you serious? Are you really? Are you coming at me because he said 2 letters? Oh yeah, we've got a sense of tone because of hi." I like Ben Grimm's voice. I thought making an external monster and a soft-spoken Jersey guy was like a perfect flick. I liked that take. personally?
I wasn't bothered by it at all.
Okay, good. I was just curious because I saw that a lot.
Look, I'm the guy who's always down for something different.
Yeah.
I am. I'm not super beholden as, like, I'm just not. You know, I was much easier. I honestly, when I saw Batman v Superman, here's the honest to God truth. When I saw it, I was like, oh, he just killed someone. Like, I wasn't like, this isn't Batman, you know? Like, okay. Yeah, he's doing his own thing. Like, I just got on board with it, you know?
And that's what I keep saying about those movies is I enjoy Man of Steel so much. I just happen to see it as an Elseworld. And that upsets people so much that, like, that was one of the things people came at me this week for, is that, like, I did a video in front of my Blu-rays, and someone literally asked, like, hey, I looked over your shoulder and happened to see Man of Steel. I didn't think you liked that movie very much. Why do you own it? And I retweeted them and said, like, I actually get a lot out of Man of Steel. I just, because of my perception of Superman, see it as an Elseworld, but I really enjoy it. And a lot of people this week have been like, this guy hates Superman so much he thinks Man of Steel's an Elseworld. And I was like, read the words in that sentence. Yeah. Is it a lack of media literacy? Is it that you just want to be mad? Is it? And that's what I think is the phase we need to grow out of. That's the teen angst that is embarrassing. Because if you don't know how to read, don't pretend to write.
Well, for the ones who do read too, for the ones who actually do read it, I wonder if there's actually more of a respect in the actual real comic book community that you are way more involved in than I am. I'm just kind of aware it exists. I'm not really involved in it, right? When I see comics, the characters have different changes. They evolve. They have different personality types. Different things come out. Sometimes characters come out and they're just the most glorious, altruistic thing in the world, and then eventually they throw in some flaws to make them more interesting, you know? So characters change in through comics. So I'm like, why is it that when it becomes the movie, suddenly it has to be just an adaptation?
I don't think it should.
And I think if you're going to do like the way how comics will start from the beginning with a character's comic origin, but bring different takes, and we're like, okay, we're testing. Sometimes it doesn't always flare well, I know, but other times it really does. And it's happened with, I'm saying it's happened with pretty much most of the most popular characters that we are familiar with in the film, in the movies, right? So when we see these versions of it where people are like, Ben Grimm should have a deep voice, his eyes should look like this. I'm more fascinated by why. I'm not even like thinking about that. What I'm saying, you know.
I think what you're asking is what's the, like, why this and not that.
Yeah.
I think there are fundamentals, right? Like, if you change a character too much, it's not the character anymore. Like, if you get to a point where a writer is writing a character and it's so different, eventually they usually retcon it. Like, in comics, because there's such a long-running myth, comics lasting 60, 70 years, there will be runs where it's like, I think we lost the plot. Like Fast and the Furious. Fast and the Furious was a racing movie, and then it became a heist franchise, and there was a moment where it was like a noir, and they've had to course correct a number of times. Those characters are still mostly those characters, but there's moments you're aware they're not right, but they kind of just ignore those moments. And that's even in the film medium. But there are also moments where if a character changes too much, I think people lose interest in what made them attached to that character. So for me, the thing that made me attached to Superman was an inherent sense of always wanting to be the best version of himself that he was. And I've always seen a deconstructionist take too early as detrimental to the character because you need to construct before you deconstruct. So I think there are certain lines where it becomes an Elseworld or an alternate take that I go, oh, cool, what an interesting look at Superman, as opposed to I'm feeling that is Superman, because a fundamental, whether I can put my finger on it or not, is different. And I think that happens with Batman. Like, I personally connect more to Bale and Pattinson than I do to Val Kilmer. And I think Val Kilmer is one of the greatest actors of his generation. I don't see Val Kilmer as Batman. I see Bale and Pattinson. And I couldn't put my finger on what it is, but it's something fundamental. There's a thing that connects you to it. So I think when it's a big thing, like for me, Batman doesn't use guns. There are comic arcs where he does use guns. There are tons of comics that dabble in him killing and stuff. And people will, when I say Batman doesn't kill, be like, well, in these 20 issues he does. And because they're in comics, people suddenly go like, well, it's from the comics. You always talk about the comics. And I'm like, yeah, but that was one person's interpretation. That's not how I interpret him. And this is my experience that you're mad at. So that can be your experience. Why do you care about mine so much you're insulting me? Have your experience. And then they're like, well, we're just sick of hearing it. Then do a YouTube show. Do whatever you want to do. But my experience is Batman doesn't kill. Batman doesn't use guns. To me, his parents getting killed by a gun fundamentally makes him a character that wouldn't use guns. That's my take. your Batman can use guns. Some writers do have that. But my thing is Batman doesn't. So I think what you're talking about is fundamentals, and I think there are comics that break fundamentals, and they don't usually last the test of time, or they become like, oh, that crazy run where that thing happened, and they like dabble with it. But does that make sense?
So with that in mind, we'll close this out with the actual topic.
There was a topic?
Is that about the Fantastic Four? I think we know the negative. I was looking for more specific ones. When we're talking about fundamentals, there are some things that you did voice that did bother, that you are concerned about, I would say. Johnny Storm. So when you're saying the element that you are bothered by from it, has there been other people that you've seen echo the same sentiment? And is it because it's a fundamental concern?
It's really interesting. Whenever I say anything negative, it's what people are, because it's so different. People are like, "Oh, what?" Like it's alarming. I think because I'm usually so positive.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen a lot of that, but I also think it is people are saying the negative thing that is being said more because it's easier to go, they agree, than to like find your own thing. So I haven't seen a lot of people as worried about Joseph Quinn as I am. And what's interesting is I know actors act. That's the point. I know actors are becoming not themselves. Like I get what acting is. Like Heath Ledger and Joker, different guys. But to me, the essence of Joseph Quinn, until I see otherwise, is sweet boy. And like even Stranger Things, where he played like the punk rock guy, when you broke the character down, it was like, oh, what a sweet guy underneath the facade. The whole point of his arc in Stranger Things was like, what a good guy he is under the facade. I haven't seen any work from Joseph Quinn that makes him look like a brash hothead. Like, not a single frame of any movie, Gladiator, Stranger Things, there's not a single moment I've experienced that I haven't been like, there's a sweet boy. And to me, Johnny Storm needs to come across as this arrogant hothead. He's a hothead named Johnny Storm. Yeah. He's a movie star, like womanizing guy that has a heart of gold underneath. I'm just worried because of the footage that we did see. All of the shots have a sense of, look at that sweet fella. What a family man. Look at that. Like he's going through like a spiritual journey in that sky shot. They advertised Johnny Year 7. And I'm just curious if we will get to see Johnny Year 1. But I also, even in my negativity, was like, I trust Joseph Quinn, the actor. I'm just curious that they're showing us this. And I'm already reading the comments. People being like, why they showed us the shot of Superman? Once again, it was a wide angle lens. And that thing was the bridge of his nose. But like I said, even in our last thing, I wouldn't have expected them to use that Superman shot promotionally because it was a wide angle lens out of context. I wouldn't expect them to use these Johnny Storm shots because it feels like that's not Johnny Storm out of context. They might prove me wrong. I hope they do. Just like I hope they prove me wrong about Dr. Doom being Downey Jr. But if you want me to be honest, which I assume you do, angry commenters, then I am, as of now, not sure about Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. But I want to be excited.
Well, a concern is totally different than a, validated, concrete opinion in some way,
And I do think hot-headedness is a fundamental, to answer your question.
Yes. Well, what if he showed, I think perhaps there's, my hope is that there's a certain expectation of what hot-headedness bad boy looks like. Mm-hmm. And maybe, my hope is that he's going to show us a different take on what that looks like.
My hope is that, my concern is that we are living in a time where men are not.
I know we go a little deeper here than normal. I was not expecting to go to. We're living in a time when men.
I'm trying to think of how to say this that won't be taken out of context.
So much like, wow, we're really going there.
I think, that's what this show's. We're the real rejects, Gregory.
Said it automatically. It's like, wow, that really just
I'm trying to make that what this show is to me. What my experience of our show is to me.
I love that. That's why I love you.
I love doing this show.
That's where you went with it. That's what I hope he does. My experience is that men, or like my concern is that men in this time.
And I'm meaning what I'm about to say.
I know.
And that I'm so attached to this thought is why I'm worried. I think we're living in a time where masculinity is seen as such a negative because so many men have weaponized masculinity at the cost of others. And I'm afraid that showing womanizing hostile attitudes won't translate to a Disney hero in a way that they felt was palatable, and that will lose Johnny Storm because of people being bad in real life at articulating nuance. I personally value masculine traits very much. I love the gym. I love UFC. I enjoy very masculine commentary on subject matter. And I, in my own life, personally experienced people judging me the moment they found out I like UFC, that I'm from Boston, that I like Fight Club. I experienced that in real life. My concern is that a major property from a major studio like Disney will take away those things because it's not popular.
Yes.
And I'm concerned even right now advocating for men with a certain audience that I know we have, because I think toxic is in parentheses in front of the word masculinity in culture right now. And I think not all of that is deserved. I think some of it is deserved. But I think that we're not living in an age where it's comfortable to be masculine front facing.
Yes.
And I think that it's really difficult because that's causing more men to feel angry and to feel isolated and to feel lonely, and it's fueling their separation. It's making more men go, I'm just going to live in this bubble of angry because I don't feel like I'm welcome. Like, there are times that I'm around groups of people that have a lot of my same ideologies, and I'll feel judged, and I'm a really sensitive masculine dude. And I can't imagine what it's like to be someone that hasn't gone through therapy and hasn't gone through the soul searching journey, or like, you know, have their walkabout in life. And you're like, what do I do with these emotions that I feel like other people are mad at? Like, I've seen literally people think that I am immediately like all right or this because I've been like a positive about a Joe Rogan interview. And like, it's like I'm commenting on an interview and an experience and a quote, and you're immediately leaping 18 steps. So my fear is that in pop culture, we're taking away the eye line for so many people that need it more than ever. I think we need to raise men to know that they need to care about others and they need to be sensitive. But if they have hot-headed impulses, we need to make sure they're also seen on screen. That way they feel represented to grow. So I need Johnny Storm to be a hothead so that we see his evolution, so that people that are going through the emotion of the Johnny Storm experience find their way. And I'm afraid if we start at a place where he's not that, it takes away an entire demographic of people trying to find themselves.
Yeah, everything you just said, the latter part, was exactly where my mind was first going when you were talking about it. Is like, you need the flaws, you know, like with that, a lot of times with certain positive things and people's traits comes the exact opposite of something very negative. And that's the whole point of storytelling, you know, like we like to watch flawed people. They don't have to just be anti-hero or people who we know are bad guy. So that we can get on board with watching, you know, Walter White or something,
right.
You know, like we need to, we do have to present that, and then not isolate. But the problem is people like isolate it and be like, here's what they did. And like, my favorite show of all time is Friends. Yeah. That show has like some jokes that for sure is like will be considered outdated, or you can't make this kind of gem. People have accused it of being like all these other, you know, things, isms, icks, and all that, whatever. So, but I don't feel like I personally don't feel like the show is. And a lot of times when you watch people grow, I'm not saying they do in that show, but in real life, I think that is the part that encourages it when you do see the level of growth. And Johnny Storm, I think that's why we are able to be on board with him, because you see that he does have a heart, that he does
underneath
care.
The thing that isn't.
That doesn't mean bad things he does are okay, but it's okay to show the bad things that aren't okay. So that way you can see an individual get better.
Right. And like walking out of a hot rod with two hot women and knowing that he's not going to call them back is an element, but like seeing him evolve to like marry an alien and you're like, what a crazy arc. I want to see that arc delivered. And like as an individual on the internet heavily, I don't feel like I have a place because of how much we're taking away that archetype.
I hope Joseph Quinn is watching this right now.
I'm identified. But like, I don't feel like there are characters that have some of my elements and attributes on TV right now. Like, I don't see me in a lot of characters today. And I know that I'm more patient and more worldly and more aware that there are voices that need to be seen first, right? Yeah. Like, when people get mad at like race swapping or gender swapping, I think like, yeah, but like white people have had a lot of decades of white people. Like, we've seen a lot of them on screen. Like, we're good. But even to a point, I still go like, there are some characters I do want to feel like me. I think we need to fix the other inequalities, but I have worked on myself enough to know it's not my turn right now. And I think there are people that haven't worked on themselves that are just getting mad because it's not their turn right now. So if we take away those characters, even when it is a fundamental, I think that's dangerous.
And I think with the fundamental of him being a soft guy underneath the big hard shell is a common thing. So I like the Thing's voice a lot.
Oh, I do too.
I think with the Thing's voice, the fact that he's interacting with this robot, you know, and he's showing such a soft side in his voice, it makes him kind of like a lovable teddy bear in a way where I'm not like, oh, I'm not. I totally believe if he's in a fight, like that ending shot when he's running, he's about to kick some ass, about to do clobber in time. I believe he can still pull
that's
that
still
off.
there. Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
But the guy underneath it, like this movie showed, the first look at the thing did not present us. It's clobbering time. It presented us the human being,
which I want,
who is trapped in that appearance.
Yeah, and that's way more interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. It is like I understand if you're expecting that.
Yeah.
I think though in hindsight, I was like, I like what they delivered instead.
Same.
You know,
I'm also curious about. I've been apprehensive about necessarily how Reed is being delivered, and the trailer gave me a little bit of faith, but I'm not fully comfortable. Like the Pedro Pascal casting, and we've talked about that, right?
Yeah, we have. Okay, why though?
I still think of Pedro Pascal in all of his roles as a guy I want to have a beer with, and I think of Reed Richards as a guy that is so aloof that he doesn't even take care of his smoking hot wife.
What do you see need to deliver though for you?
So the trailer gave me a taste of like the diction and that reservedness and all those things that is acting, but there's still an inherent coolness that is the aura of Pedro that I don't see in Reed. So I need to see in the movie or in the next trailer, more extended, moments that feel like a guy that wouldn't get along with everyone because he's smarter than them. I need to see, you tell me this all the time, what are the two things, Greg, that make you approachable on camera? What are the two things?
Oh God, what was it? Warmth and incompetence.
Yes, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I need to see just competence and a lack of warmth that you always tell me to work on.
Yes.
I think Pedro Pascal has inherent warmth.
I don't tell you to.
Oh, you have been like, hey, people might like you more if you're less of a dick. And I was like, maybe. Like, I think I lack warmth at times.
Say that.
Yeah, it's okay. I need that. But like, there are times that
Was I being like real or joking? Was it both?
It was both.
It was both.
It was both. But like, we literally have talked about like, team building by me being less of a. I need that conversation about Reed. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think he is so warm by his nature that I'm like, I don't know if I buy aloof scientist because Pedro seems pretty chill. And like, there's so many actors that have that, like Adam Driver and even Joseph Gordon-Levitt at times, where you're like, I don't know if I'd vibe with this guy, even though they're still cool.
Huh. I'm still stuck on what I said to you. I feel like that's such an insensitive approach. I'm sorry.
It's been like a over the course of months culmination of conversation. Like that's narrowing it down to a singular. So there were nuanced approaches, but overall, like that's something I'm working on your advice.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right.
Yeah, I think that
I like everything you said about Fantastic Four.
An hour and a half into this video, we got to the point of the title.
I mean, is there any other net? Galactus too small?
He changes size by nature, and he's also a figment of our viewway. Like the way we see him is the human experience. Galactus doesn't even look like a dude.
I'll admit that that shot, I think where I can sort of meet it is like I think you do need the impact immediacy of that it is a massive character, like in size.
The statue does that for me.
That's part of his character. I think there's some processing you got to do. It's not an instant register.
Okay.
Where it's not giving you that, like you see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give you that immediate impact. Like I feel like that should be, if you're going to tease Galactus in your trailer, there is that part in my side. I'm like, well, one thing I felt like they ought to have aimed for is the fear of this massive thing coming, if they're going to show him at all.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that was quite communicated, even though I'm not like, it's going to be like that in the movie. I'm like, that's not what I'm thinking.
Sure.
Just thinking for your first shot, like first shots. First
impressions are huge. Yeah.
But I don't have the worry that will be the case because I like the shadow, but I didn't even notice the shadow shot the first time because it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't notice it was like the Galactus. Maybe I did, but I didn't have time to take in like
We're
the
talking over,
massiveness of it, because like the Nosferatu hand moment is like terrifying, and right. And I thought that. And Nosferatu is not a giant being, but that delivered for me like, oh, this massive giant thing to fear in the Nosferatu trailer. And I didn't get that with Galactus when they were kind of going for the same thing in that shot.
The combination worked for me, but admittedly, I noticed the shadow a little bit more distinctly. So maybe it worked because ominous and then comic imagery. Like, I got the payoff of like, oh my God, they actually went comic accurate. And it started ominous. So maybe I'm okay with it because I did get the, oh, he's so big.
Yeah, but Koi, I have a problem with something. So if you don't agree with me, I'm gonna like go to your past
Now
tweets
it's your show
and see what I can
It's
do
back to
to
being
change
Greg's
some
show.
narrative here.
Greg's show is this,
All right.
and how dare I speak of what I want on Greg's show?
Those are the main complaints about Fantastic Four, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. No, there's more.
Is there more?
Vanessa. Wait? I heard some people. What were people upset about Vanessa Kirby about?
I haven't seen those. She's that and Ebon Moss-Bachrach. I've been saying his name wrong. Apparently, it's not Bachrach. It's Bachrach. Ebon Moss-Bachrach and Vanessa Kirby. I feel like are the two like cleanest. Like we love them, but maybe I'm wrong.
His last name is Bachrach.
It's Bachrach or CH. But yeah, it's
Like Bachrach.
Yeah, I think Ebon. What's that?
Like Burt Bacharach.
Yeah, like Burt Bacharach. Ebon Moss-Bachrach. Yeah.
I never heard that name.
Yeah. Apparently.
Bachrach.
Bachrach.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like you're right. It is more positive. I don't know. Looking for minutia is really interesting, and it's definitely newer.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad people are positive, and those are the main complaints.
Yeah.
And what in dialogue, I'm just like, yeah, it's generic trailer lines.
It's almost like the movie's out in 6 months.
Like what Pedro is saying in those lines. I'm like, I understand your first impression. You want to feel like some type of magic to it.
I have an interesting thing.
I will say, while wearing the Superman trailer, it's a Superman sweater.
Yes.
The question of are we Shills? I'm like, this totally looks like a Shills. I'm like, I feel like I was more moved by the Superman trailer.
I personally was a little bit more moved by the Superman trailer because I think the stakes for me are just so much higher because I didn't connect as much with the takes that people have since Smallville. Like I connected a little bit more to the Fantastic Four movies because I love Chris Evans as Johnny Storm. I love Chickless. Like those movies I feel like were a little bit more of a scratch back than I got out of like Brandon Routh's earliest Superman. Like I think the Kingdom Come stuff he did on the CW is actually more my jam than his movie. So like I feel like I haven't had the big screen Superman experience that feels as much like the character as I've ever wanted. So to me, the stakes are higher personally because I'm like, this honestly feels like, oh my God, we're going to get a Superman movie in a way that I haven't experienced fully. And I had like, me and my dad rewatch Man of Steel like every couple of years. Like that's one of the movies that we rewatch and re-experience a lot. But to me, the fundamentals are different enough that I'm like, oh, we're about to get like when a great example is X-Men. Like when Wolverine shows up, and I love Hugh Jackman's take, right? But it's in black leather, and the movie's a good mutant movie. It's not really an X-Men movie, and he's not the leader of the X-Men. But after all these years, seeing him in the yellow and in Deadpool and stuff, and like the Berserker Rage and all that stuff, I was like, we got Wolverine and Logan. Logan was a great example of like, we got Wolverine. To me, I feel like we've been leading up and like we're about to get Superman, whereas I feel like we've kind of gotten Fantastic Four. I think they can absolutely improve, but I think the Superman trailer hit me in like, this is the comic, man. Like, this is special.
All right. Well, we're shilling for DC.
Yeah, look at us go.
That's what's happening. They just paid Coy $10,000.
Ching, ching.
They just got money.
That's how it works.
Studios are stupid, and
They're live. They're watching right now.
One person's opinion.
That's all it takes. It's a very easy way to profit, frankly. If only.
I mean, there are some. It's a lot. I just feel like 99.899% of the time when people are accused of being paid, like beyond us, I'm like, they're not.
No.
They're not.
And often, and this is maybe speaking out of turn, and I was very when you talked about the Disney thing on the live, I was like, whoa. Often, it is not as pleasant to be at premieres or do discussions that involve the studio because the level of navigating it makes it feel like work in a way that's hard to do with art.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'd much rather talk about something like my thing with DC is very much me working on that show, but they don't send me emails about my opinion here. Like I'm not a DC person once I leave that set. And I think I would have a really hard time if I was that because I want to have my takes.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's I agree. I wouldn't. There was one time where we did years ago. I don't remember the name of the movie. It was a big learning lesson in my life. Since I talked about some failures at the top, well, officially with another failure of a lesson is there was a movie where I just remembered it. John, do you know what I'm talking about? When we went to go see it, and it was like they paid us like $1,000 to go watch this movie.
For the audience at home, knowing nod from John, big smile.
This was many years ago, and the movie was not great. Not great at all. I actually kind of hated the movie a lot. And I had agreed to a payment. And so I had to, and I had a whole contract, so I had to not say the negative things. And it really messed with me as a person.
Yeah, I didn't know this.
So afterwards, I remember someone offered, there was ones that came in once, that was like $3,000 to like give a positive thing on a movie. At the time, and these times of taking that was like, we were living like hardcore paycheck to paycheck, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my God, this could really help. I was like, I have to watch the movie first if you're going to have us review it, right? And I really hated the movie. I was like, can't do it. So ever since then, it's been many, many years. That's why I'm like, I know I just can't do it. I can't be a shill. Like, it's hard for me to like. It really, I hate that. It's one thing. Like a trailer is not the same thing to me.
I was about to give my example. I will do a trailer review and be like, I will take a paid trailer review and watch the trailer and get back to them before I'll do a movie review unless they're willing to give me the whole movie. I won't do a blind accept money to say a positive thing if I can't see the whole movie. I won't do it.
Even if they're saying it's okay to be negative, I still am like, no, I can't. I really can't say, I can't take this on because I feel like that creates doubt that I'm being honest. And I'd rather have people accuse me of being dishonest, but no, I'm telling the truth, than feel like there's a level of distrust because I have that with people. If I know they were paid to watch this, I'm like, I don't know if I could. Like a trailer's like, I still will be like, can I just watch it first? And I'm much quicker to be like the Wolves trailer. I was like, that was like, we watched it first. We should record a reaction to it first, and then we were like, yeah, we liked it.
Yeah.
We can move forward.
Yeah,
but,
But I do the same. I need to see it before I agree because I don't want to lose my integrity, and authenticity can't be gotten back. And that's why I'm so offended. Holy crap, full circle. Thank you, Greg. That is why. This is what a great therapy session here with Greg Alba. I think that is why I'm so upset about Twitter and people calling me a shill, and also people that send me the same 4 tweets about my opinion on Snyder, is they're trying to say I'm inauthentic. Authenticity is all I have. My entire career is based around me being authentic. I don't like talking about my fear of being seen as an angry white man on the internet. I don't like talking about how, if I listen to a Rogan thing, it puts me in a category of people. I don't like being that vulnerable, but I want to be authentic, that I like some things that people that are in my same ideologies don't like and judge me for. I don't like that that's part of my genetic makeup, but the authenticity of my experience is so important to me that it breaks my heart that someone would call my authenticity into question. When I was wearing that while showing off the comic that I'm so proud of. Like, I'm on the back of comic books now. That is literally my dream since I was a child. And about half the comments on Twitter, about half, were, oh, congratulations, you're getting paid to love Superman. That's why you're defending it so hard. That breaks my heart in a way I can't even describe, that I accomplished something that I've wanted since I was a child, and half the comments are calling my authenticity into question. I've been a positive person on the internet for a decade. I didn't just start, and I've always been this positive. I'm not starting because of this, and they have no control over what I say here. And so to be called into question and have my authenticity questioned when I'm outside of that space because of something I genuinely love and gave articulate multiple reasons, even spelling them out, it kills me that someone can be that much of a dick to a stranger, because it hurts my belief in mankind. Like, I actually doubt humanity every time someone is that dumb, because I worry that we're getting rid of the Department of Education. How much dumber can we let people get until they're just choking on their own spit? It hurts me. So last thing I'll say, and then we'll wrap. I'm sorry. I had a con moment 7, 8 years ago. I was sleeping in the Hall H line for warmth because I couldn't afford a hotel. Hotels at Comic-Con are crazy expensive. I couldn't afford one, but I wanted to go to Comic-Con. I was literally sleeping in the Hall H line all of the days of that con. And the week before, I'd been offered a brand deal where I was supposed to go around, interview people, and invent a hero based on their interview questions. And they offered me $10,000 to do man-on-the-street interviews. And I had already started saying yes because I was like, I get to interview people, talk about superheroes. This sounds amazing. Midway through the process, I researched the company that was offering me, and it was a shell company. And I was like, they have no history. What? And then I dug deeper. And I literally had to do the Better Business Bureau site to find out all this stuff. And I found out it was a GMO company. It was a company about genetically modifying food, and the whole theme of the thing was make things bigger like a superhero, and they were gonna use me to make pandering stuff about the positivity of GMOs. I was gonna be in that's awful. And I had to turn down money the week before Comic-Con when I was sleeping outside, and I knew I had tickets and I didn't know where I was gonna stay, and I never had a place to stay, and I turned it down. And now all these years later, I'm doing a job that's my dream. I'm having things happen that are my dream. You and I get to talk about what we love because we love it. And to have these people that I know they're projecting, but it doesn't make it any less painful to have people say you're lying. And I hate the word shill because I want to keep loving stuff without defending it. I want to just say I like this thing. So if you're considering, not even just me, if you're considering attacking someone you don't know about something you don't know, they might just like it. Just think once, like think just a little first. And everyone that reached out with love, thank you. It meant the world. And don't think we don't see all that stuff. The boys in the hood reaction has been my, I literally have read through that comment section like 20 times to counter all the stuff I've gotten about Superman.
Nice.
Like
That's great.
you guys mean so much to me and you're why I can be authentic. But everyone that calls it out, it's like, it's the death of 1,000 cuts. Like I'm such an angry person inside. It makes me hopeless and I never want to lose hope. It's why I love Superman.
All right, guys, what should we call this? That was beautiful. Thanks for sharing, man. Thanks for sharing. What do you think about Coy being positive all these years just to one day get opportunities? Leave your thoughts down below.
Played the long game.
And as we mentioned in great depth at the beginning, Michael Tesler, who's here, Multicon.
Oh, look at that beautiful sumbitch. I didn't know he came in.
I've called him out twice.
I thought it was.
He doesn't listen.
I thought. Oh, I didn't know it was that Michael. I thought it was
Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you said Michael,
Who's not angry? You yell a lot.
I am angry. That's my secret, Michael. I'm always angry. When you said Michael, I thought you were being very formal with Mike, so I didn't realize Michael was here. And I also thought that was a weird pivot. Like they just met. You're being awfully formal with Michael.
We'll keep a lookout on my next video where I break down why Bruce Banner holding on to his anger is not cool.
Oh, I'm gonna die so young, man.